This is the second session, and this is the scope. Yeah, what I will talk about today is firstly, we are talking about human relationships. Yeah, today, and how do we really give it the scope, yeah, for our understanding. Secondly, I will talk about friends and companions, which are important in our lives. I will talk about harmony in the workplace. How does the employee see this relationship? Because boss and employee, there is a relationship there. And lastly, how does the boss see it? So in human relationships, we look at the nature of human beings in today's world. In the past, if you ask your parents or your grandparents, when society is not so competitive, yeah, and we are willing, we are not so attached to the things that are important to us, we have many relationships. Even, let's say, our family, the far relations, we know them. Yeah, let's say a cousin of somebody, we will still know them because people do come together in those days. Yeah, because relationships are very much valued, yeah, in the past. But nowadays, you can see that even going home for Chinese New Year, it becomes difficult. We have to really think, can I, go through the jam? Can I bring the family and all those kind of things? So when we have those kind of thinking, it means that relationships, yeah, are kind of not as important anymore. I mean, do you know your neighbors, from all the sides? Have you talked to them? Have you shared food with them? So it's the relationships that even when we are, especially when we are living in a big city, yeah, those type of simple, very simple relationships, yeah, they tend to suffer. Yeah, somebody like the neighbor, you see them maybe only when you go out in the morning to work, and then you come back at different times. And after that, you don't really interact with your neighbor. So it's important for us to understand these relationships because, as I outlined in the last talk, they are important to us, and not important in the way of getting benefit or profiting, yeah, from those relationships. But if we have strong relationships with other human beings, we also feel we are part of a group and it nurtures us. But the trouble is today, yeah, husband is working, wife is working, children go for tuition and here, there, and everywhere. Yeah, even within the family, sometimes we don't see the children as much as our parents used to see us. So those kind of things, we must be aware that if we don't put effort into it, yeah, it can suffer. So it's well known, yeah, and I've had the opportunity to work with young people because I used to teach in the university before I retired, a private university. And I began to see that, my students, they have different levels of mental strength, mental resilience, how strong they are. Because sometimes when it comes to exams, when it comes to doing projects, then we can see whether they are strong character or not. Can they do the work well, or are they just willing to give up? Not really caring about their education. So we can see that those who come from very strong family backgrounds, they seem to be happier, they seem to be healthier, yeah, and they like to mix with other people. But as you know, these days, because of technology, this device, yeah, called the handphone, yeah, is very disturbing to relationships, right? And you can see that there are cartoons, where people gather for dinner, and then they can WhatsApp, please pass the soy sauce from the other side of the table rather than talking to others. So that means relationships are now taking a back seat. yeah, in our lives. And this is not really good. Yeah, it's not good for us as human beings, because we don't form strong bonds. And when we don't form strong bonds, the level of humanity, yeah, of being a human being suffers. And that's why there are many mental health issues now. Yeah, even when we have kids, we don't listen to the kids. Yeah, we just say that I'm the parent, you are the child. Yeah, I know what's best. There are times when that relationship can suffer also. Yeah, because we don't know them as well as we think, yeah, we do. And therefore, it might not be nurturing your child. Yeah, and I can see, especially when they come to us in the last few years of their education, yeah, they are not able to take stress as well, you know, in their lives. So I just thought I'd mention that. And we can see that they have mental health issues as well. You know, usually when their relationships with close family, as well as you know, friends and relatives are not so strong. So we take a look at friends and companions. Yeah, this is from the Sigalovada Sutta. And we looked at the Mitta Sutta just now. The Buddha said, with regard to friends, Mitta means friends. And there's a close relationship between Mitta and Metta. Yeah, Metta is friendliness, loving kindness. And Mitta means friend. And you get another word called Kalyana Mitta. Kalyana Mitta means good friend, friends who really have your welfare in their heart. So the Buddha said, monks, a friend endowed with 7 qualities is worth associating with. And which 7? He gives what is hard to give, and that's the first one, right? As I said, we have many things that are dear to us. But when you want and I want that object or that thing, yeah, do we care enough to let go and let the other person be happy? So giving what is hard to give means that the other person's welfare is very important to us. More so sometimes than our own welfare. Yeah, we are important to us, of course, right? But there are times when human beings care more about others, yeah, than they care about themselves. That is a good friend. He does what is hard to do. There are so many things which are hard to do. Like just now I mentioned, yeah, can you as a friend do things which are inconvenient? Let's say, you know, your friend is going on a holiday and asks you to come in every day to water their flowers or water their plants. Can you do that? Even if you are not living close to each other, they say, here is the key. Can you come in every day? And I want this plant to have more water and that plant to have less water. Can you take that sort of inconvenience for the good of your friend? He endures what is hard to endure. And sometimes relationships go through rocky patches. It doesn't mean you have a friend, everything is smooth sailing. Yeah, sometimes it's difficult. You might have difficulty in your life. Your friend might have difficulty in her life. So sometimes we have to endure each other, even though things are not going well. And it could be that there is misunderstanding between you and your friend. How strong is your friendship? Yeah, in spite of the problems that you are having, do you still value that friend? Yeah. So this is up to us, yeah, to consider. He reveals his secrets to you. He'll tell you, look, I've got all these things going and I'm very worried about my investments and all these things. You know, I've got so many shares in this and I've invested in this. He readily tells you this. Yeah. So he doesn't want to hide anything. So that you can understand. Maybe in his work, or in his private life or in her private life, they're having some problems, right? So it tells you everything. I'm having some problems here with my wife, with my husband, and all these things. I hope you can understand if I don't spend so much time chit-chatting with you. So he will tell you, or she will tell you the secrets. On top of that, he will keep your secrets. You also tell them, you know, I've got this problem, that problem, and he or she will readily guard your secrets. And when misfortune strike, he doesn't abandon you. Yeah, we have got what are called fair weather friends, meaning to say when the weather is sunny and beautiful, he's your friend. But when the weather gets gloomy and dark, yeah, and there's rain clouds, then you cannot see this person. They disappeared already. Where is this guy, right? So this type of friends who stay with you through the thick and the thin of life, that is a good friend. Yeah. And if you have anybody like that, yeah, you must count yourself very, very lucky. When you are down and out, he doesn't look down on you. Yeah, which means to say, if your fortunes in life, if you're earning, yeah, the social standing, you have lost some kind of respect or social standing, you're going down and down, he or she doesn't say, now you are down, I don't want to mix with you. Yeah, that is not a true friend. Yeah, a true friend is when you're up, when you're down, when you got good luck or bad luck, yeah, things are going well or not going well, the friend is really going to stick with you. So the Buddha said, and very, very accurately, a friend endowed with these 7 qualities. If you can have a friend that you can take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you are very, very fortunate. Then we go to the specific areas of the friendship, as discussed by, as advised by the Buddha to the young man, Sigalaka. The Buddha said, a clansman, that means he is a member of society, should, this clansman should look at his friends in this way, by way of generosity. He's generous with the friends. By kind words, you don't say bad things to your friends. You don't hurt your friends with sharp words. Sometimes, you know, when we are young, especially, I've had friends say very nasty things to me. And I'm wondering, hey, are you really my friend? Are you insulting me? But then after a while, you know, sometimes when we are young, we don't really consider it. Yeah, and then later on, yeah, we know that when you're young, you try to provoke each other. Yeah, but in the long run, yeah, he or she is actually a good friend. Because later on, when he matured, then his words became very, very, very nice and very kind. By being helpful and acting for their welfare, yeah, there are so many things concerning this, but we have discussed it. By being impartial, that means you really tell this person what is the situation. You are not the person who only say good words. When this friend is doing things that is going to do things that are not right, you have to tell the person quite sincerely. And lastly, as I said, by showing sincerity, you are sincere. Then again, the Buddha said, the friends looked after by this person should reciprocate in this way. You protect him when he is off guard, or her, by guarding his or her property when he is heedless. For example, let's say you go out for some drinks and then you happen to drink alcohol and then you get drunk. Yeah, and so the friends will look after your handbag or your car and all that, so that you know, maybe you eat something that doesn't agree with you and then you feel sick and you want to throw up, vomit and all that. Your friends will look after you at that time, not take advantage. By being a refuge when he is in danger. That means when he's facing some danger, you will step up and say, don't worry, I will take care of it. Yeah, let's say you met with an accident, very, very nervous due to that accident on the road. I don't know what to do. Then your friend said, don't worry, you sit down here. I will take care of everything. I will talk to the other party, and then I will handle all the insurance, whatever it is for you. That is a good friend. By not forsaking him in his troubles, by showing, that means it is quite clear, yeah, by showing due respect for his family. That means when you go to the friend's house, you will also, yeah, address the father and the mother in the right way. Yeah. I seem to think that sometimes nowadays, people want to be very informal. So when they go to the house, they don't even acknowledge the father and the mother. You know, just walk in with a friend and do whatever they want to do. So that is not being polite. Yeah, that is not being friendly. I'll go on to the next one. So the Buddha mentioned in this Dhammapada verse, I didn't bring it up earlier. It is a very nice verse to inspire us, to motivate us that not all the time we will be surrounded by good people, friendly people, and caring people. So in these three verses, the Dhammapada verses, the Buddha said, firstly, he said, so happily we live without hate among those with hate. Among people who hate, we live without hate. So we can be surrounded by hateful people, but we don't allow them to affect our mind. So happily we live without affliction among those afflicted by defilements. Among afflicted people, we live without affliction. That means to say, we are mixing with people who are not as morally aware as us, not as mindful as us. But the funny thing is, when you let people know that you are a religious and moral person, sometimes they will remind you. You know, when I was working in an office, people got to know that I was a Buddhist. And then when I did things that are not right, they will say, hey, Buddhists do that. No, no. And then I feel very, very shy. You know, and then so I become more aware of my actions, yeah, when people know who I am. So this means to say, don't think that everyone is as ethical as you are, as spiritual as you are. So lastly, so happily we live without agitation among those agitated by the pursuit of sense pleasures. Among people who are agitated, we live without agitation. Meaning to say, there are those who always want to enjoy themselves. So among these people, we don't always have to follow them. Yeah, there might be people that you know who always have to go shopping at the end of every month. When they get salary, they go off to do shopping and they must buy this, buy that. But we, being moderate people, we don't have to follow them, yeah, all the time. And neither do we have to have really expensive things all the time. Yeah, we can make do with things that are useful to us, but we don't have to spend so much money. So this is what the Buddha meant. Then we take a look at the relationship between employers and employees. And bear in mind, this was given by the Buddha 2,600 years ago. So what are the things that we need to, let's say, put in context for today? Yeah. So the Buddha said, in 5 direct ways, should workers and servants, as the lower direction, be respected as an employer, right? So these are the responsibilities of the employer. Number 1, you allocate work according to aptitude. That means to say, this person can do this type of work, yeah, and this volume of work, so much of work, you allow this person to do the work well by not overloading the person. Sometimes it's very difficult. I know. Yeah, sometimes you want people to take up more of the workload. When somebody leaves, somebody goes on holiday, on leave and all that. That is fine, but it's not permanent. Yeah, you don't make people work until they are absolutely stressed. This is what the Buddha recommends. You provide appropriate wages and food. The package that you pay must be, you know, in recognition of this person. You look after them when they are sick. So what are the medical plans that you have for your employees. You must look after them. You don't say, yeah, especially in those days, when the person is sick, oh, you are sick, don't come to work. Yeah, I don't really care about you. Yeah, you cannot work today. So the Buddha said, even when the person is sick, you must provide some health care to this person. You share special treats. In those days, sometimes the worker will live with the employer, and then when the employer gets something very nice to eat, yeah, something of a delicacy, you will share with those people who work for you. I remember some of my bosses, when they got the hampers and gifts during the festival time, they would be quite decent, you know, and said, okay, you take this box of chocolates, yeah, you take this can of drinks or lychee or whatever. So you share, and the employees will appreciate you for it. And you give them reasonable time of work. That is, when it's time for their leave, you allow them to go on leave, rather than make them feel guilty. I've had bosses who say, you're going on leave, you know, we are working so hard and you can take time off. So it's making a person feel very, very guilty. But of course, we take leave when it is not essential, and it's not critical time, yeah, to the company. So now we are looking at the company and the people employ us. Yeah, but in those days, it was master and servant. Yeah, you pay people. Yeah, it was a boss and it was a workers. The other thing now, the reciprocating is, if you are a worker or a servant, how should you treat your boss? Number one, you start work early, meaning to say, and it is discussed in this sutta, you must be in the office before your boss. You don't come in after your boss is in. This is what the sutta said. So the Buddha said, you get up before your boss gets up. That means you are staying with the boss. So before the employees get up, you get up and start doing your work. Then finishing late when needed. That means when there are things to do which are extra, maybe some, you know, extra work, cleaning up or whatever, you will do it. You don't say, hey, 5 o'clock, I got to go. Too bad, you know, I'll see you tomorrow. And that is not the right way to look at the relationship. You're taking only what is given. Yeah, we don't help ourselves to staplers and pencils and take them home, and paper, yeah, colored paper and all these kind of things. You do your work well, right? And you promote a good reputation. Sometimes it's not easy, especially when the boss is not reasonable, to say good things. But the Buddha recommended, yeah, advised us, you don't say bad things about your boss. Even though the boss can be unreasonable, it's not for us. Yeah, and when people ask, how's your boss? Oh, he's all right. He might not be the most caring boss in the world, but he does his job. That's it. You know, rather than, oh, he does these things, you know, he makes people feel bad, etc., etc. It is not a professional type of behavior. So this is the concluding part. Why do people have problems, you know, in their relationships? Not just about working for a company, not just about bosses, and not just about friends, yeah, but also within the family, yeah, between couples, and also the larger community. Why does this happen? So in this Sakka Panya Sutta, the Buddha talked to Sakka. Yeah, Sakka is actually the king of the gods. Yeah, Devaraja, the full name Sakka Devaraja. And this Sakka changes. Yeah, the Sakka is not always the same person as the king of the gods. So according to karma, this position, yeah, changes together with the benefits of the position. So one day Sakka approached the Buddha and asked, Venerable Sir, why is it that gods, humans, demons, dragons, fairies, and any other creature, yeah, although they wish to be free of enmity, violence, hostility, and hate, they still have these bad qualities? So this was Sakka Devaraja, yeah, the question to the Buddha. And the Buddha answered, Lord of gods, he said, the fetters of jealousy and stinginess bind the gods, humans, demons, dragons, and fairies, and any of the other diverse creatures, so that if they wish to be free from anger, violence, enmity, etc., and hatred, they still have it. These are the two qualities: jealousy, yeah, and stinginess. Yeah, in Pali, Issa and Macariya. We still have this. We are jealous of others. We are stingy. We don't want to give. That's why you can see that in a good friend. Your good friend will have very little jealousy and stinginess. Then Sakka went on further. He approved of what the Buddha said, and he asked another question. Venerable Sir, Bhante, what is the source, origin, birthplace, and inception? Where does it come from? How does it appear? When what exists, is there jealousy and stinginess? What are the conditions? When what doesn't exist, is there no jealousy and stinginess? And the Buddha very readily provided the answer. The Buddha said, the like and the dislike, Lord of gods, are the source of jealousy and stinginess. That means we have attachments to things and we have dislike for other things. That means liking and disliking. Yeah, and when we like and dislike things very strongly, yeah, we have all these problems. Yeah, hatred, enmity, jealousy, etc., etc. Then we go further down. And he said, dear sir, what is the source of what is liked and disliked? And the Buddha, answered, desire. Yeah, all craving, tanha, is the source of what is liked and disliked. But what is the source of desire? Thought is the source of desire. That means the desire is already there, but when we think about certain things, the desire will activate itself. Then he asked, what is the source of thought? And the Buddha gave this very, very sharp, very accurate answer. Concepts of identity that emerge from proliferations of perceptions are the source of thoughts. Yeah. And this is something which we must be aware of, because when we think about relationships and we don't really understand this section of the sutta, we will spoil things. Yeah, we will make things difficult for the relationship. You see, the Buddha talked about anatta. Yeah, anatta means there is no permanent I. How do we create this sense of I in ourselves? We create the sense of I by thinking about it. If you don't think about I, then the sense of who I am is not very, very strong. In Western society, this is not a critique. This is not a condemnation of Western society. I spent years studying there and living and working there as well. I noticed that there is an emphasis on self, ego, identity in Western society. So they take it very, very seriously. But in our Asian societies, we are more relaxed about whom am I. So you see, so the thinking about who I am is much less. And we are more informal and casual in the way we think about our things. But that is changing. It is changing tremendously. We are learning so many things from the West, and not all of them are good things. So this is the way it works. If you don't think about I, what do I like? What has he said to me that has hurt me? Yeah. Do I want to change the color of my car? me, belonging. Those are thoughts of I, and it gives rise to the concepts of identity. In the meditation, when we do our meditation, we keep our mind on the object of the meditation. It could be breathing, it could be metta, it could be some other thing. There are many objects. Our minds are stopped from flowing to thinking about I. So the first thing that we realize is, hey, I'm very peaceful. I'm not disturbed. So there is no thought of I. Therefore, our minds calm down. But when we start thinking about I, as explained here, the concepts of identity, concept. Identity is a concept because the Buddha did explain there is no permanent I. We think that we are who we are, but when you go and explore, you look for it, there is no soul or sense of self. So this is the teaching of anatta. Therefore, it's important for us to train our minds not to be so self-involved. Don't think so much. So you can see that the people who don't think so much about themselves, they seem to be very cheerful and happy all the time. And those people who are very self-involved, what do I like? Yeah, does this shirt suit me, so that I look good? Those allow the concepts of identity to become stronger. So, and it comes about through right thought. Yeah, and when we have right thought, which is the second of the Noble Eightfold Path of renunciation, goodness, goodwill, and harmlessness, our minds are kept away from the thoughts that give us all these kinds of relationship problems. Yeah. But that needs to be understood a little bit more. So with that, I'd like to thank you. It's just a short sharing, which needs to be reflected on. We make the aspiration, as I always like to do, may our lives be nurtured by good relationships. Yeah, thank you for your attention. Let me shut this down. Okay, back to...
Now we have come to the question and Q&A segment. Brothers and sisters, do you have any question for Brother Siang? Please raise your hand and turn on the microphone if you do.
I hope I haven't confused everybody.
Anyone has any question?
Brother Tan, actually, you haven't confused us. It's very good. We understand. I understand the sutta better. Thank you. Basically, I think it's as long as if our ego is smaller, then we should be happier. We should be more peaceful. That is that's why in our cultivation, I suppose we always try to reduce this ego of ours. Thank you.
Yes, and as I mentioned just now, it involves the thinking of ourselves. That is a very important factor, because the more we are self-concerned, then the ego or the sense of self and identity becomes much stronger. So if we are very selfless in doing work for others, yeah, and not let the mind keep on thinking about about, is it good for me? Am I looking good? Am I looking as young, as I used to? And all these kind of things, which is got to do with our our caring or our worrying about our ego, then it gives rise to relationship problem, because the more we think about ourselves, the less selfish, uh, the less selfless, the less selfless we are. But if we are happy-go-lucky and then we just like to give to people and we are not so concerned about ourselves, people in turn like us because we are not so worried, we are not so concerned, we are not so indulgent, in ourselves. So the thinking is an important factor. So therefore, in the training, when we come to the Dhamma, the training of the Dhamma is don't be so selfish, and therefore let go all these things that we have always held, about who we are, what we are, do people respect us, etc., etc. We in the Buddhist organizations, we attract a lot of good people. I mean, people who are very good at doing their work. They are very professional and they are very well qualified and they have all kinds of experience behind them. They could be MD of this and director of that, etc., etc. But sometimes it's not easy to work with them in the Buddhist organization. Why do I say that? It's because they have been so successful in their job that when they come together to work for Dhamma-related objectives, sometimes they can't let go of their ego. I'm so good. I've handled, I have led multi-million-dollar companies and projects. So when I come here, you are very lucky. Therefore, the ego is so strong, it becomes difficult to work with such people. No doubt they are very, very good in what they do. But because they can't let go of their past reputation and their past successes, they become a little bit difficult to work with. But if you have somebody who is also very good, but they don't care about, what people think of them, their reputation, their, their profiles and all this kind of thing, it's so wonderful to work with them because they are very selfless. Let's get going. Let's work for this. And we can do this together. You are part of the team. And therefore, you will get the job done much easier if the people that you attract, that you bring in, they are not so full of, the sense of identity. I'm not sure whether you have recognized that, but I have been contributing or working for different organizations. I recognize that sometimes it is a problem. I mean, no doubt you want to attract the president of or the MD of this company can come into your society and do great things. But first of all, you have to understand whether this person can let go of all these of all the authority that he or she once had and just work on a grassroots level with everybody who wants to help. Any other comments about what I have shared?
Yeah, Brother Siang, yeah, I tend to agree with you. There is such issue in the Buddhist society where those people are in the high ranking in a company. So how do we build the relationship with such people? that they cannot let go their ego.
Yeah. You will have to let the Dhamma take care of them. The more Dhamma they study, especially they listen to Ariya's talks, yeah, their sense of self begins to soften. Very often the sense of self is very hard, very solid, because look at me, yeah, I'm so successful. But when you listen to the Dhamma and you listen to what the Buddha says about letting go, especially in the Noble Eightfold Path, just now I mentioned right thought, yeah, right view, understanding, and right thought. The first two factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. You need to actually get everyone in your society to really understand it. So when we explain such things, then they are highly intelligent, they are very clever. It starts to make sense with them, to them. And when it starts to make sense to them, especially, they have to see it in the context. The bigger picture is anicca, dukkha, anatta. Then that sense of self begins to soften, yeah, to open up, and then you can have a good person who is not selfish, yeah, and not so much caring about the ego, right? One of the important things is in right thought, yeah, are the thoughts of renunciation. When people hear this word renunciation, renunciation, you want me to shave my hair, wear orange robes? No, that is not the renunciation. The renunciation is to let go of things that give us suffering. And one of the things that give us suffering is attachment to ego, to I. And when we are able to let go, it takes time. Some people easy, some people very, very hard. Yeah, because they have lived with their ego for a very long time. So it's very, very hard. Yeah, but don't underestimate the sense of these people to understand Dhamma, because they are very, very clever, yeah, and very smart, and sometimes very, very wise. They can catch the Buddha's teachings, yeah, quite easily. But we have to approach it in a way that slowly lets them understand the nature of life. That life is actually, in the long run, nobody gets out alive. At the end of the day, we are going to have to meet our end, our death, the end of the story. So that will make people not so full of ego. Yeah, you tell them, all of us are going to end up 6 feet underground. No matter how much money you have 1 million, you still go underground. I have 1,000. If I save up enough, I will still go underground. All of us at the end of the day are the same. We are all going to die. So when you keep explaining the anicca, dukkha, anatta, they will start thinking, especially when the years, when the age keeps on coming on, year after year after year after year, you are not getting any younger, you are getting older, and you are getting nearer to the time when you are going to end your life. Your life is going to end. So that takes away a lot of selfish ideas, yeah, from the person. But I don't mean we hit them on the head with it. What I mean is there's a slow journey, yeah, of the Dhamma. And the Dhamma refreshes us by opening our eyes, to what is really here. What is the real situation? So when we understand this, we will see the miracle of transformation. The miracle of transformation, and this is, by the way, it is the secret of the Dhamma. Let the Dhamma change people with the truth. We don't tell them fantastic ideas. We don't tell them fantastic stories. We just tell them the truth. And the truth is, the more you let go, the happier you will be. Yeah, if you are so attached to everything, you will be more and more unhappy because you can't take it with you, right? This is anicca. So the more we learn how to let go, you can see the lightness of the heart is going to increase. And then this person, you have to guide them. You have to guide them. Then you show them, right? Look, you see, the more you let go, the more you renounce your sense of self, you feel so happy. There's a lightness in the way that you think. Isn't it wonderful? Then they will say, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. And so this is how we find happiness in the Dhamma. Yeah, and when we find happiness, we develop wisdom, we stay with the Dhamma. Yeah, it is not a short time project. Yeah, it is a long-term project where we also learn about ourselves.
I think, yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, brother, because I could resonate it. Yeah, and Ayao knows, every Friday, I have a chance to have a chat and I'm with Aya for the past 6 years. Yes, what brother has, I think it's all about Sankhara. All this topic about Sankhara is a mental preparation. And that Aya always tell me, hey, what's the intention behind all this? Think, check the intention. Always check about the intention. And if this is bad, just go back to the three things, dukkha, anicca, anatta, 3 things. And also, we know that sankhara is about like a karma. Yeah, it's for your action and your effect. I mean, everything has to be wholesome. Whatever you speak also, and sometimes when I talk to Aya, I say, see your words, these are not a very wholesome words, So the word wholesome, it has to be wholesome, no ill will. So yes, do nothing. It will come. So I could resonate it, and the last weekend I said, Dhamma, Buddha Dhamma is so amazing. It's really so amazing. So it's all about learning, and when you meditate more, you could see clearer. And when you see clearer, it's all about past conditioning. And when you slowly look at this, it's about past conditioning, and you know there is really no I. When you have no I, you learn to let go, because it's all beyond our control. Yeah, that's what I've learned from I.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. It's a good teacher will have good student.
I think Sister Simon, you have a question.
Yes, to Brother Tan. Let's say, to me, self and ego is like a spectrum. So to the very end, there is this very strong ego, very selfish type of people. And then there is lesser and lesser and lesser to the people who have a little bit of ego and also a little bit of selflessness. So there's a balance. And then there's those people who are selfless. Because we are trying to train ourselves to have less and less ego, but sometimes living in the real world, we'll encounter bad things and we'll encounter bad people. So how do we protect ourselves by not being gullible or not being bullied, by having less ego or less self? How do we protect ourselves? Yeah, that's my question. Is there a standard or a list of things that we need to look out for?
In my understanding, there are many ways, and it's a long-term thing, because not many people can take being told, you have no ego, you have no self. You go and tell that to people outside, they think that there's something wrong with us, And we have ego. I know who I am. You are telling me I am not me, right? What are you talking about? So not everybody really will respond, yeah, in the right way. Anatta, this sense of non-self, when you do your meditation and you are involved very, very strongly in the practice of meditation, one of the earliest things that you have to deal with is anatta. It is quite strange. Yeah, sometimes we think we will deal with anicca, we will deal with dukkha, but no, one of the earliest wisdom that will present itself to us during the meditation practice is anatta. Yeah, and it can be life-changing, because when we get this kind of understanding, yeah, it can change the nature of our life and the way we view life as well. So therefore, as I said, we have to do, the Buddha said, my teaching is about, number one, yeah, avoid evil, do good, and number three, purify the mind. These three must come together. You cannot do the first two and then leave number three. Yeah, these are one package. It's a package deal. Should you accept it, you must come together. So therefore, when we develop the mind, when we do mental training, when we develop wisdom, then it also allows us to not be disturbed by those people who are so involved in self. So that's why we need to have the understanding, both the theoretical understanding as well as the practical, experiential understanding. That means we understand it from the book, we read it in the book, and then we also understand it, in the way of reality, what actually is real. And that must come from the training and the purification of the mind. So when we are so sure of what we understand as Dhamma, when we know that the Dhamma is not just something written in the books, when we know that the Dhamma will help us to regulate our lives, to not make life so high or not make life so low, but very, very even and balanced, then we are not so disturbed by people who have no Dhamma. People who have no Dhamma can do anything. Anything, actually. They have no restraint. There's nothing to hold them back. Just they think about it, and if they have the power, they will do it. So they don't have a sense of precept. They don't have a sense of morality. Some of them, they just have a sense of selfishness, of adding to what they already have. And so they might want you to help them achieve their objectives. So therefore, there are times when we need to make a choice. The world is not absolutely rosy and nice for Buddhists, especially those who are very, very, who really want to practice the Buddha's teachings. There will come a time, or there will come many, many times, you need to make a choice as to how important the Buddhist life is to you, or how important it is to follow the worldly, the way of the world. So when we know what is important to us, then we make the choices that maintain our harmony, and our happiness. For that, we need the wisdom that will come through study and practice.
Okay, noted. Thank you very much.
Brother Jason,
Thank you. Brother Tan, I dare to admit I'm one of those egoistic guys. I dare to admit it.
That is a good first step.
But the thing is that there's a big word using here, learn to let go. Okay, let go. That's a big word that I really don't understand. You know, when you let go of something, you must get back something. You know, just like when you give up smoking, you tend to get another habit, you see. So this let go word here is too big for me to understand. How to overcome such a situation? Because like you call it, being a father, now I'm facing a problem here is I see my son is like me last time, also very egoistic, you see. So now, you know, I just want to understand the word let go there.
Well, we sometimes let go when we see the reality of life, you know. And therefore, it's good to discuss anicca, dukkha, anatta. That means to say, we go and look at people who are suffering. Because when we don't come into contact with suffering, and some of us are very lucky, we escape the suffering until we get to our retirement age. Yeah, that means very lucky. When we see more of this suffering, the mind will automatically let go. But we don't do it. We don't see suffering because we don't like to see suffering. We stay at home. Yeah. And on the Sunday, maybe we spend the morning at the Buddhist center, and for the rest of the day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that we do whatever we have to do in our lives. We don't really come into contact with suffering. But if there is somebody in your family who is suffering a disease, you catch COVID, yeah, or you get cancer, or you get something that really is painful, then we will understand what is the reality of life. If you don't come into contact with suffering, you will not change the way you see the world. Never. Because, hey, I'm great. I'm doing well. Why you want me to change? I have no reason to change. Until we are hit with the reality of life, we don't really want to change. No reason, no purpose. Yeah, why are you telling me about all these things when I am so comfortable in my life? One good thing is, and we used to do that in the old days, is go to the hospital and see the suffering people and see how many of them have little time to live. And even though they are living in pain. Then we can understand we have been lucky so far. Am I going to be lucky for the next few years? Yeah. In my society, I had this young man, this brother, very young man. He was going to work on a motorbike. Yeah, he can afford a car, but in KL, you know, some people like to get through the traffic on the motorbike. One day, his motorbike hit some hole or something. He fell. The helmet came out. He hit his head, and he was paralyzed for these past few months. So one day you see him like that. Next day he is in hospital with all the tubes, yeah, inside of him. So this young man has to get well. In fact, he has improved a lot, but it took years, actually 2 over years, for him to be able to sit up and walk a bit. So his life completely, the next day, he cannot even move 1 inch of his finger. So when you come into contact with suffering like that, yeah, some different way of thinking, yeah, will start affecting us. But it is not easy, yeah, because the mind, our mind, is not open to change until there is a drastic, very terrible things happen to us, then we start to change. If you start losing people that you love, let's say, you know, parents, if you lose a wife or a husband in the middle of the life, you will start to change. If, worst of all, you start losing children who are younger than you will change also. Because you question, why are these things happening? Many people are lucky to escape until they get to their old age. Then you will see all the changes happening in you. And you have to hope that you do not get sick. I got COVID end of last year. And it was not the new type. It's the Delta variant. It wasn't so bad for me, but for my wife and I got it at the same time. She suffered a lot. But I was lucky, you know. I suffered for about 3 or 4 days. But there was one of those days I thought to myself, when the conditions, physical conditions were so bad, my oxygen level went down, right? I really thought, now, am I going to survive this? Then that is when you need the wisdom of the Dhamma, you know, to tell you, if you don't survive, you don't survive. If you survive, you survive. Right now, it's up to karma. Do you have the karma to go through this? So life is like this, but changes do come. So we need to reflect, we need to see, we need to understand, then we will change. Some people, when they are faced with bad conditions, you know, with things that they don't like, they will not develop wisdom. They will develop even more anger and hatred. You know, there are those who say, why is life treating me like this? I should be able to live until, you know, I am 90 to 100. You know, at the age of 50 something, why do I get this disease? Right. So this is drastic. It makes them even more angry, even more withdrawn. But there are those whom, late Chief Venerable Kesari Dhammananda, one day he went for checkup. After a few tests, the doctor told him, Venerable Sir, you have prostate cancer. And Chief Reverend, I got prostate cancer. And he started laughing. And the doctor, Malay doctor, was shocked. You know, when I tell people they got cancer, most of them they either get shocked, they get stunned, or they start crying. You are the only one who start laughing, right? So there is the wisdom there, about the real nature of life. But not everybody is like that. When they are stunned with a physical disease that will kill them potentially, right? They become very angry, very bitter, and they don't like it, very much. So the life, then you have no choice. You cannot get rid of this disease. So what are you going to do? So the very famous Ajahn Chah, the meditation master, said, he said, there will come a time when you face a situation, you cannot move forward. You cannot move backward. You cannot stay in the same place. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? If you suddenly told you got prostate cancer, what are you going to do? You cannot move forward. You cannot move backward. You cannot stay in the same place. So Venerable Ajahn Chah said, there's only one thing you can do. You can accept it. So when we accept it, our heart then begins to open to the present moment, to this situation. And whether whatever comes up. Right? So this is the way that we begin to understand. When we come into the Dhamma, we have to do a lot of reflection. We have to think, about what is the reality of life. When you do meditation, and your meditation is looking at reality. When we do concentration is a different thing. When you look at the nature of the body, the first thing that you will see in the body is pain. The nature of the body is painful, but we don't see it because we distract our minds from it. If you sit there and you don't move, we sit here and then we move here and there. Why do we move? We move because of pain. There is pain in our body. So we move on. Now, okay, see for John. I can sit here for the next, but if you don't move, you will really understand the nature of your body. How painful it is that you don't move. Then you will really understand the reality of life. How painful it is. And the pain can get deeper and deeper and stronger if we don't move. So in our lives, we like to do that. Whenever we have something disturbing us, we distract ourselves. We move the body. We find another position that is more comfortable. We don't stay in this way. So to cut the long story short, it's basically reflecting, going to see the reality, see what is real, go and see the people who have 2 weeks, 2 months left of their life. You talk to them, and then eventually, you might get an understanding of the true nature of life. Then we learn to let go. We learn life is like this. The more we hang on, the more we suffer. The more we let go, the more we are relieved. We at ease. Thank you.
Well done. Excellent. Thanks a lot.
May we now invite Ariya to share her views on this topic?
Yeah, we have a very good session. I think Brother Siang has shared a lot, and two main things that come to my mind is as we see the word relationship, it's just like a ship sailing, that involve our relation with ourselves and our relation with somebody else, right? And so most of the time is because due to our self-centeredness, and then we get into trouble, right? And this morning I just shared with some of them about Matatu, and I remember the story of the king. They asked the queen, who did she love most? And she said, myself. And then the king was very upset because he expect that she will say you. So in this case, it's the same. Then when he complained to the Buddha said, when you think of that, you ask that question, don't you think it's for yourself? And so therefore, in our life, a lot of things we do unconsciously, but actually it's very self-centered to ourselves. So like what Brother Siang has explained in depth, is that when we practice selflessness, and I think it starts with humility, like in Karanimetta Sutta, I said humility. He who's skilled in doing good, even you're already skilled in doing good, but if you wish to what they call calm and liberation or freedom, then what should we practice? The ability, ability to understand the Dhamma, ability to make changes, and I think ability to put it into practice. So I think these are very key word. And then next, I would say you must be upright. So I think as a Buddhist, we have this refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and the 5 principles of life, the 5 precepts, the training rules for us. And then we can actually practice that. And also, let's say, obedient, gentle, and humble. So just now, I think Brother Jason did mention, and you reflect that, now my son is like me in the past. And I think now, if you want him to see a different him, then you start with those qualities. Then you will see in him, because normally children imitate parents. So when we see in them, we see ourselves. So in order to find that, I would say, qualities in them, so we can start with ourselves. With ourselves. So then they'll start to learn. I also learned from like devotees when they told me also in the past, he and the father always hate collision, work in the same company and also at home, sometimes it carry on, But the thing is, after he started to understand, and he himself restrained, and then he started to see his father also change, and so it always starts with ourselves, and so it's so important. We say we have a good relationship with ourselves, have kindness to ourselves, and then that will be translated to others. And the more important today, like the topic, we say relationship, so that kind of friendship of Kayana Mitta, like even today, we may have the from different walks of life, but it come together with one what they call purpose, to learn the Dhamma and also to share the Dhamma and to embrace this Dhamma. So hopefully we can actually put it into practice and find that fruit, of that good relationship that established in ourselves, to relate ourselves to something good, something wholesome, something that brings us happiness, and then also to bring this to others. So selflessness is important, and all we know that even to reach that kind of state of saintlyhood, it is to what they call to understood and realize the non-self, non-identity, and that's where you get that freedom. As long as we apply it with ourselves, then this will tie us down and tangle us in suffering, cycle of suffering. So indeed, this is a very thick idea in our mind. Like the Buddha said, we always think this body is self. The self is this body. This body as self, the self as body. This body is in the self, and the self is in the body. So it's so thick. Our self idea, self identity is very, very thick, and they have advisors. Then we can spend time to discover about this journey of non-self, the journey of freedom. So we very happy that all of you make time to come together to discuss and to listen to those who have gone through life, and also how they overcome the selfishness or self-centeredness. So then we find more peace, more happiness, and more freedom. So we wish all will. Gianna?
Thank you, Ayah.